Fired federal worker Mack Schroeder returned to Capitol Hill this week, making sure this experience a week earlier with Republican Senator Jim Banks was not the final word in his untimely termination.
Hi, I was a worker at HHS. I was fired illegally on February 14th.
You probably deserved it.
I deserved it?
You probably deserved it.
I deserved it.
Dude, that's
wow.
So sad.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Why did I deserve it?
Because you seem like a clown.
This week, Schroeder was joined by a group of other fired federal workers, and they stopped by Senator Banks' office to confront him, but were only allowed to meet with the senator's staff instead of the man himself. And former Health and Human Services budget analyst Mack Schroeder joins us now.
Once the clip went viral, and frankly, I thought it was despicable. When I first saw it, I was like, vote these people out. But when the clip went viral, you know, I used to be a staffer for a number of different elected officials. And when nothing like that has ever happened to one of my candidates or anybody I worked for. But there have been things that happen, and I'm like, oh, we need to pick up the phone and call. Or did anyone call you?
No, and I'm frankly not surprised that they did. I think because if you saw his responses, he really doubled down on what he was saying. He sort of had this thing about, you know, everyone being on the Hill as like a woke activist and all this stuff. But I think what I try to hone in on is I wasn't looking for him to tell me, why did I lose my job? When am I going to get reinstated? I wanted him to know what he's going to do for his constituents when they have all their services cut. So, you know, this isn't really about me. It's not about, you know, what he said. It's about the fact that he does not have a plan in place and just kind of blatantly supports these cuts with no rhyme or reason.
What was that? The 90-day pause, or more commonly known as The World Burns, starring none other than the tariff man himself, Donald J. Trump, and his, the sidekick, should we call the ever-dramatic Fox News, cameo appearances from Elon Musk, and the economic jailbird himself, Peter Navarro. Fox News is kind of divided into two bits. Some of it hate what's going on, they live in the real world, and 95% of it are so far up his own back. Trump's backside. Is this real life or just fantasy? There's a question. 90-day halt on tariffs for everyone. Yes, everyone except China, which just got slapped with a whopping, was it 125%, 4,000%? Who knows what figure it's going to be Thursday, only Wednesday. To me, it's kind of become like watching a game show host decided who gets a car and who gets a goat hidden behind the curtain. And China, they got the goat. And as I said, over at Fox News, it's a different story. Some of them are painting this tariff pause as a second coming. Headlines, breaking news, pundits praising Trump's strategic genius. It's as if Trump just saved the economy, parted the Red Sea, and discovered a cure for the common cold. But not really a cure for where AWR Melania is. And he did it all before breakfast. Elon Musk and Peter Navarro. I don't know, it's dark. Musk doesn't like Navarro, doesn't like tariffs, and is moaning about it. Whereas Navarro is suddenly like, he's being reinvented. Let's power cars with a combustion of fuel coming out of Navarro's mouth. I mean, I don't know. He's just spinning it. Between him and Levette, they could be a DJ at a nightclub the way they're just spinning this trade dynamic mess. And the craziest thing about all of this is Twitter is like a battleground right now of hashtags and hot takes. Tariff man is trending with memes of Trump, the art of the deal, all of that stuff. The 90-day finance. I'll get the joke out eventually. Trump and Xi Jinping are in an uneasy reality TV marriage, which is kind of being brokered by, I would say, a bemused-looking Elon Musk. MESS. And don't forget, Howard Lutnick, the man he's got a lot in common with the average millionaire on the street. He's like a bubblehead that's just had a double espresso, nodding. He's probably calling it a genius move. Although I'm sure a few days ago he would say there'd be no pause. But he's just turning pause today into the next big thing. Where's it all going to end? What happens next? I mean, it's like we are trusting the guy with the tariffs who makes a casino go bust. Google it. He made Mr. 90-day tariff man he made a casino go bust. It's less about trade balance and probably in his world more about the balance of his truth social posts. It's a tale of distraction, a sleight of hand to keep us all guessing, while nothing really changes today, maybe tomorrow. It's kind of the equivalent of a dad joke. It's so bad, it's just really bad. It's probably best we all forget it. It's like an episode of Global Economics turned sitcom. Pop some popcorn away for the next X or tweet to drop. It's kind of like are they just trying to trend? Do they think if you're not trending on a social media platform, you're not governing? Is that what they want? Because I generally do not know what's going to happen next. Will Tariff Man's gamut pay off? Or will it go down as just another blip in the history of economic policy misfires? Excuse the cliche, only time will tell. But one thing is certain, in the world of politics, social media, it's actually entertainment, really. It is entertainment. It's costing us all a fortune to watch, but hey, there's no such thing as a free streaming service, or let's call it a free screaming service these days.
Talking about Hunter Biden's laptop right now. You're using the wrong bathroom. I miss eggs. We're talking about global economic warfare. I mean, in my family, should we buy a house now? We got to hold off on all this stuff. We don't know what is going on. And, that can work to your advantage. My daughter says, can I have ice cream? It's like, look, there's too much uncertainty right now, sweetheart. But this is not the conversation that we should be having, that the economy sucks. So it's a mess.
Well, it's a little bit. I actually think Larry Fink at BlackRock, the CEO of BlackRock, said it best. America used to be the great global stabilizer. Now we're the great global destabilizer. And that's so distressing. And it's such a home goal. It's so unnecessary. And the changes we're seeing are not for the better for anybody. And all the CEOs I talk to, and I've talked to a lot over the last couple of weeks, are really anxious about what this is doing to America's reputation and to the actuality of doing business.
Do you remember when Donald Trump used to talk about the stock market and say things like this?
The stock market is soaring to record levels. Their values are going up every single day. We have made America wealthy again. Look at our stock market. Look at that market. Look at your 401ks. If he gets in, you have the greatest depression in the history of this country. Your stocks will go to hell.
Maybe this is why some people on Wall Street are starting to question whether Trump isn't just erratic, but actually maybe isn't all there. I mean, that's been some of the reporting this week, is that they're actually concerned that this is so irrational. It cannot be explained by a person in their right mind, because Donald Trump understands how important the stock market is. And he used to care.
He used to care. And last week, if he really wanted to handle this the right way, I mean, everyone would agree that maybe America has been taken advantage of with some of these tariffs. So go to some of these nations and say, okay, we're going to start at 20%, but have a private negotiation with them. And then say, okay, can we get it down to 10% and go back and forth? They know exactly what entity in each of these countries they want to try and get rid of or reduce. That's the art of the deal, by the way. That is not how this. That is not how this happened.
This is his big thing.
He's been talking about it for forever.
And he finally got to do it, and then he didn't know how to do it.
You know what the biggest disappointment is, to your point, that people are now worried about what's going on inside of his head? Where are the Republicans? Where are the Republicans to stand up to this, other than a couple?
Maybe a week or two, and they will break down.
But the Republicans,
because it's going to start to hurt at
The
home.
Republicans have been nowhere all along. This is consistent behavior for them. But what's concerning is that America, the American economy is one of the great glories of the world. It's one of the 7 wonders of the world. Sure. And that's not going to be true anymore. And he's supposed to be leaning into this sense of being a radical president, that at the end he's supposed to leave the economy in incredible shape and he doesn't care what it takes to get there. But this is already going way off the rails.
To your point, Michael, about how this is his thing, that is so true. And this is the irrational part, right? Trump has been talking about this since the 80s. And he seems to have ignored everything that happened between 1987 and today, which is that the United States continues, even with trade being imperfect, to dominate the rest of the world by every measure. He doesn't factor that in when he says that we're losing, that we're being taken advantage of, that everything sucks for us, even though we are winning.
This reminds me of Doge, where people are supportive of the concept of Doge eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. The problem that people have is how you went about it. People are supportive of reciprocal taxes and tariffs and a lot of these things. The problem for Donald Trump is how he went about it. And so when you have your list and you go out there and say, we're going to slap tariffs on these people, on these different countries, and then after the fact, when you're asked, can you give us a list of those 75 countries, please? They say, oh, no, we're not going to give you that information. It is how Donald Trump went about this. And so what he should have done at the beginning, and you have a lot of people smarter than me, like literally, I sourced all conservative outlets trying to figure out what argument I would make. It simply did not work. If Donald Trump had done this 90-day pause at the beginning, or just said, we're going to make this about China, we're going to give a 90-day, review period for a lot of these other countries, that would have been much better than making a big deal about the tariffs, Liberation Day, and then within hours of them going into effect, you say, oh, whoa, we have a 90-day pause.
We're throwing tariffs around like Trump. Trump oftentimes means trade deficit when he's talking about tariffs. That bulletin board was just an example of trade deficits. It reminds me of my father, rest in peace. He said he loved jazz. He loved jazz. Then we would go to a jazz club and he'd go, I don't like this. He'd go, Dad, it's blues you like. It's Trump
totally different thing.
Totally different thing.
But
he thinks tariffs, to him, it's all music.
Yeah,
to him,
a totally different thing.
It's trade deficits that are pissing him off. Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
that one's for you, Dad.
Straight question. Are you confused? Comment section now. Have you had enough? Comment section now. Are you tired? I think it's a deliberate policy to put as much chaos out there just so people think, you know what, I don't want politics today. I've had enough. Let them get on with it. Because if you try and keep up with the pace of the nonsense, the BS, the lies, the garbage, you get like all over the place. And they're playing a great game at the moment. You've got to give it the administration. What's that comedian? Bill Maher, whatever, rocks up to the White House, used as a prop, I should point out. And that's how the administration has got at the moment. Your former, should we call them liberals? And now, like, welcome to the White House, because it's like, there's just no checking going on. They can say what they like, and it appears to be nobody is coming up to say anything against them.
The DHS secretary who has been playing dress up, she went down to El Salvador to this prison and played dress up and filmed a video.
With her $50,000 Rolex
yes,
watch.
I saw the watch, honey. Yeah. I saw the watch.
Okay.
They put her in the prison and got her out.
Yeah.
Why the United States government is paying for the men that have been sent to this facility? They literally gave millions and millions of dollars to El Salvador for payment for the men that are there. Why can't they just get him out? Why are they saying they don't know where he is?
You know, that's exactly, that's a very good question. I mean, I looked up an article today that was from February 4, the Associated Press, when Rubio said, oh my gosh, the president of El Salvador has made this wonderful offer to us. And he basically said, not only is he offering to hold migrants, he's offering to hold American citizens. He's offered to do the same for dangerous criminals currently in custody and serving their sentence in the United States, even though they're U.S. citizens or legal residents. If you're doing that, you can get them back. You can't send, if somebody's serving a sentence of X years, yeah, by right, you have to get them, be able to send them back. Okay, this is bull. Okay, and they're playing games with this federal judge, just like that lawyer said. They're sending somebody to court who probably doesn't know the answer. Like, all you say, you want to send you to court, but I'm going to tell you anything you can say. So then the lawyer just goes, I'm sorry, Judge, I don't have an answer to your questions, even though these are basic questions.
And they're effectively disappearing people. They're building a framework by which, and that is where I think all of these cases begin to come together, whether you're talking about Mahmoud Khalil, whether you were talking about Abrego Garcia. And there was a great piece in Slate by our friend Joseph. Thank you. His three names and never remember which order they're in. And he writes, Trump's newly confirmed Solicitor General, John Sauer, is openly asking the justices, the Supreme Court justices, to affirm the government's right to establish a black site in El Salvador, to which any individual may be renditioned without legal recourse. Once there, they are subject to indefinite detention, hard labor, torture, and death. According to Sauer, however, American courts are powerless to order their return, even when the government admits to removing them by mistake.
Yeah.
How convenient.
As a conservative federal judge essentially said, I may not have the quote right, but there, in the Fourth Circuit, a very famous judge, Judge Wilkinson, said in handling one of these cases, said they're creating a regime of perfect lawlessness. Okay? They are basically creating a black hole for due process. And what they are doing is basically they're saying, okay, we're going to send them somewhere. We're going to pay these people to hold them, but then we're not responsible for them. We're not responsible if we make a mistake. We're not responsible if we do it for the wrong reason. We're not responsible, and we can't get them back. Sorry.
Right.
Okay? And not only that, this CCOT, or whatever you call this prison that they have here that's in El Salvador, it's run by gangs, essentially. And and people, I'm not sure people actually come out of there. I mean, we're talking, this is the road to, this is what they started doing in Germany in the 30s. And we're on the road here to something, if we're not already there, something really,
they're
awful.
creating the black hole using the law to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that for me is.
But they're not using the law.
Well, no. Let me get to. Yeah. Well, they are because Marco Rubio is relying on powers that are stated in law, according to him, that they can take someone like Khalil, right, and remove him, put him somewhere else, because of his potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences that he posed. That's the law. And that gives him the power. So my point is, I want to know, what has this Columbia student done, right, that is such a serious adverse policy, has such a serious adverse policy, foreign policy consequence to the United States? Exactly what did he write? What did he say that would justify the Secretary of State holding up this provision of regulation / law, right, to justify taking someone out of their home, off the streets, or off a campus?
But it's not law. It's not law. It's the veneer.
He wrote, I think, Secretary of State Marco Rubio cited a rarely used statute to justify. The statute,
right?
So that's my point, George. Look, I'm not going to play the semantics game. The reality of it is he's relying on authority, broadly speaking, either written as a regulation or written as a statute.
It's a veneer.
And that's
fake.
That's not a real statute.
No, but their use of the statute is fake because the predicate for the use of the statute doesn't exist. It's like the Alien Enemies Act. They're saying...
But that's my point. They're using what is written on paper. I get what you're saying, but I just want to break it down for folks. I'm not going to play the legal game here. What they're doing...
They're playing the legal game.
Right. You're taking something from the 1700s. You're taking something that was written in the 1950s in statute because of the circumstances at the time, right? And they're applying it to the individual cases that we see. I'm actually helping your point of creating black hole.
Right, they're creating the black hole by lying about what the law says.
Right, that's
okay,
all.
That's
all
right. They're misapplying the law. They're saying, this is an invasion. Where's the invasion? What is an invasion? Invasion is when a bunch of people come together en masse with arms.
But the courts are buying.
No, they're not.
They're not?
Tell us about this immigration judge.
Tell me
because
who
we
they are.
asked,
Tell me what you think the Supreme Court is
yeah,
doing.
well, the Supreme Court and this immigration judge.
The Supreme Court. Okay, we have to. I mean, there's so many different cases. Okay, so we have to untangle all of them. But are we going to the break or no?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
All right.
We discussed this in the break.
We
We'll talk
discussed this
about
in the
what
break.
we
Okay.
discussed.
So, all right. So in the case of the habeas case, right? The case where they said that you had to bring the challenges against the deportations, the mass deportations or the mass renditions of the Venezuelans to El Salvador. They just said you had to do it in a different procedural fashion. But what they also said was these people get due process. And they get due process, first of all, they have to get notice before they're taken off the streets or before they're sent abroad. They get notice, and then they can bring a habeas petition. Now, it's a slightly different procedure, but they get to challenge the terms of their detention. And already, judges in New York and judges in Texas have basically said stop. And that's how the issue of whether or not they're full of BS when they're saying that this is an invasion under the Alien Enemies Act or a war, or these people are alien enemies. That's how that's going to get litigated, and it will get litigated. Okay. Now, I mean, you can debate whether the Supreme Court was right on whether or not the proper procedure is habeas. I think they were probably wrong, but they are saying 9-0. They did say, and this is a huge loss to the administration, they said 9-0, these people get due process. And Stephen Miller at the White House said these people don't get due process at all. Okay? The government actually ended up conceding the point in the Supreme Court. And that's what I mean. They lie. They say they make up one rationale, then they realize we have to come up with another one, and then they send people to court in that other case where they don't tell the lawyer the information that the judge needs to be able to enforce her order, and that's their way of trying to avoid it. They're playing games. They make stuff up as they go along.
Why won't the judges stop them?
The judges are working on it. They have to, but the judges can't say. Judges can say, produce this guy, bring him back, facilitate his return. Okay, and they're going to say, sorry, we can't do that. Well, what's the judge going to do? The judge gets to, and the Supreme Court made clear that the judge gets to do this, gets to find out, well, why is it? Tell us more. Bring somebody to court to testify, and this will happen. Bring somebody to court to testify to tell us exactly why you can't ask the man who's coming to Washington on Monday, the president of El Salvador, why you can't even ask him to bring somebody back that you concede was taken out of the country illegally.
This is a very good point. The president of El Salvador will literally be down the street. We're literally at the Capitol, down the street from the Capitol. Be down the street at the White House on Monday.
He's a thug.
Folks should be asking questions. Yeah, he shouldn't even be at the White House, but that's a whole other story about how we just throwing the papers up as a foreign policy.
Right. Thug life.
George, Tupac don't got nothing to do with this, but can you please stay? Because we also want to discuss what's happening with the law firms.
I never want to leave. I love it here.
You are with us.
All right.
There are these law firms that are caving to Donald Trump. We want to get into that.
Don't get me started on that. No, you can't do that on television.
You're watching The Weekend, folks.
I can't say that on TV.